Right, so we're going to start in a cross-legged position. So do get hold of some padding to draw your sit bones up and therefore release around the front of the pelvis. And find yourself in a comfortable position. So hopefully everyone can see me okay. So we're going to do a bit of a recap over the last half term in terms of the themes that we've been looking at and the shapes and the movements that we've also been looking at. So we've worked into the shoulder girdle in various ways. So we're going to again be working with the shoulders with a little bit of rotation around that area. We've been looking at the breath, specifically Brahmari breathing, humming bee breath, and box breathing. So we're going to be incorporating that into some movements. Box breathing, again, being the inhalation with a pause, exhalation with a pause. So you're literally following the shape of a box. And we'll be looking into some of the hip work today. There's quite a lot of content really for an hour's session. So beginning in our easy cross-legged position, as you know, known as Sukhasana. If you find that I'm clapping randomly, it's because there are mosquitoes in this space. There's quite a few of them. So coming into your cross-legged position, we're going to begin to notice the breath as we breathe here. Breathing through the nostrils, of course. And indeed, if you can't breathe through your nostrils for whatever reason, breathe in a way that feels free for you. And at this time of year, sometimes we've got a little bit of a tickly throat. I know I have. My body's battling with trying not to get ill in the last 2 weeks. So just acknowledge how you're feeling as you breathe in this way. Coming back to that sense of allowing for the abdomen to relax on the inhalation, and that sense of drawing inwards on the exhalation. So when I talk about this abdominal breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, we're acknowledging that the diaphragm needs space to move down on the inhalation and move up on the exhalation. So that's really crucial to our practice. And we're going to use the hands to begin to attend to the 3-part breath. So we're actually going to start by bringing the fingers around the front of the abdomen and the thumb wraps around the back line of the waist, relaxing through the shoulders and the jaw here. Now, as we inhale, feel into the hands around the waist here. And as we exhale, allow for the waist to potentially draw inwards. So there's a sense of movement as we inhale and exhale, attending to the abdominal region or our belly, inhaling and exhaling. So we begin to become sort of very attuned to how it feels to breathe in this way, focusing on the breath. Now we're going to move up into the thoracic region, again using our fingers. The thumb wraps around the back line as we bring the fingers underneath the armpits. And we're moving into our thoracic breath. So here, as we inhale, we allow for the rib cage to open and expand outwardly. And as you exhale, the fingers draw together. As you inhale, you allow for the rib cage to open and expand. How do you perceive that in your body today? And then exhale, the fingers draw together. Just a few times. Now, this exercise can be really super to come into on its own without necessarily a physical yoga practice, just coming into the breath. So how does that feel to breathe in this way? Really focusing on the rib cage and the thoracic. Now we're going to bring the hands to rest on the shoulders. Just observe how it feels to bring the elbows up towards the ceiling, inhaling into the upper reaches of the chest, clavicular breathing. Now, I don't know about you, but I definitely perceive less movement as I breathe into the upper reaches of the chest, or the back upper reaches of the chest. Focusing on the sense of inhaling into the top of the lungs and exhaling. Now, for me, my awareness becomes very much located around the jaw and tension around the jaw. So just acknowledge whatever is present in this way. Breathing and releasing here. And then drop the hands, and you have the option of coming into Gayana Mudra, the symbol of consciousness, where you bring the forefinger and the thumb together, and the forefinger can gently curl into the thumb or come to the tip. Moving into a sense of alignment, we're going to come straight into box breathing. So that we've got a ratio of 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. So we're breathing in the shape of the box. As we inhale with a count of 4, say, we're going to count on the inhalation to 4. We're going to hold at the top of the inhalation for 4. We're going to exhale for 4 and hold that for 4 at the end of the exhalation. Now, if this is too slow for you or indeed too fast, come into a count of your own, whether that's a count of 6 or you reduce it to 3. So let's begin. Inhaling, relaxing belly, 2, 3, 4. Find a pause, a kumbhaka, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pausing, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. One more time. Inhaling. Holding at the top. Exhaling. Pausing. We're going to inhale the arms up and overhead this time. Pausing as we reach above the head. Exhaling to rotate into an easy twist. 2, 3, 4. Find a pause, reaching up through the crown of the head. Inhale. Pause. Exhale and rotate. Pause. Inhale. Pause. And exhale. Pause. Extend out the left leg here with the foot on the inside seam of the body. Inhale, stroking the hand alongside the seam. Pausing with the arm reaching over. Exhale, find some release. And pausing here. Inhaling. Finding a pause, lengthening the right leg, closing in through the left. Exhaling and stroking the hand alongside the inside seam. Finding your pause. And breathing here. So we're aiming to come into our box breath at every moment within our movements. Inhaling. Pausing here. And exhaling. Now we're going to bring that right leg in through the midline to come into Janu Sarasana, okay? So just be mindful of the position of the legs here. We're going to come into a little flow. So we'll be coming into Janu Sarasana. We'll then take the hand behind the buttocks to reach the pelvis up towards the ceiling. And then we'll come into a rotation. Okay? So with the breath in box breathing here, wherever you are with that, if you're starting from afresh, you might like to exhale into your forward fold. Coming into that pause at the end of the exhalation, or indeed the top of the inhalation. Now we're going to spend a little bit of time with our Janu Sarasana as we come back to the sense of parigraha, or non-grasping. So within our yoga practice, if we are to grasp for concepts or shapes or external ideals, we might grasp hold of the big toe. But because we're working with Satya, our own truth of where our body is at and the experience within, we don't grasp for the toes. We just simply enjoy the sense of sensation and where we are within the asana. Breathing here. Now, by all means, if you lose that sense of box breath, that's absolutely fine, but it's a different pace and a different experience of where we are. On your next inhalation, drawing up, bringing one hand, so left hand comes behind buttock, and we lift up through the pelvis, pointing the toe, reaching up into Wild Thing. Finding our pause and drawing ourselves back down and into Janusarasana. So we fold over the knee, enjoying this movement for what it is internally. And taking that hand, we bring the hand back behind the buttocks, point through the toes, lift into Scorpion, the Wild Thing rather. And then drop the hips back down. Now this time we're coming into rotation here. So we rotate to the right side of the body. Finding those pauses. Box breathing. And bringing ourselves back in towards the midline. We're going to lift that foot up and rock the baby. So you might want to bring the foot into the hand or into the elbow, just acknowledging the external rotation of the hip. We're then going to drop the foot over the leg here to come into Ardha Matsyendrasana, grounding down through the sit bones and spiraling over to the left side, hugging that leg in, finding height throughout the spine. And on your next inhalation, drawing yourself back and through, and we're going to straighten that leg out here. So we're bending through the right leg now, coming into our lateral extension. So the left leg is straightened out. So we're not facing the femur. Stroking the left hand alongside the left leg and bringing ourselves into that C shape. Finding that still point at the top or the bottom of the breath. And drawing ourselves up and out. We now swivel the pelvis, so we're facing the foot now, Janusarasana, changing the position of the pelvis slightly and fold over that straightened leg. Practicing a parigraha, not grasping for a rigid, straight Iyengar feel, but looking for a softness and a sense of receptivity with gravity, with the ground. Noticing how the legs feel, the hamstrings, as we spiral the toes up towards the ceiling. Hamstrings are a really great reminder of the truth of the matter, which is our bodies. It's not about getting rid of the hamstrings or having no hamstring tension, because we need the hamstrings to hold us together. Breathing here. On your next inhalation, drawing the spine up towards the ceiling and then taking your right hand behind your buttock, pointing through the toe, lifting up through the pelvis, reaching and drawing yourself back down, coming into your Janusarasana, moving between those points. And of course, we're practicing ahimsa, non-harm, as we're not overextending. We're paying attention to sensations, drawing our torso back up and coming back into your Wild Thing. Bring the hand behind the buttocks, pointing through the toes, reaching, finding a sense of openness through the front line of the body and drawing the pelvis back down. So now this time we're bringing that right foot into rock the baby or cradle the baby, finding a little bit of movement within the hip, perhaps taking the hand into the crease of the elbow, practicing non-harm by not forcing pressure into the knee, observing what is the right amount of movement for our bodies, as we all have different architectural structures within the joint that is our pelvis. And then we're going to take that foot over the straightened leg, reaching up through the spine here, and rotate to the right side, giving that leg a little bit of a hug. Breathing into the base of the belly, imagining you have a hand around the abdomen. Breathing here. And then releasing that leg. We're going to bring both legs out in front of us. So we come into Dandasana. Now we're going to swivel the legs in. So without using the hands, swivel the legs to one side and swivel the legs to the other, coming into our little swivel of the hips. And you might realize where this is heading. So we might end up in a mermaid position. But as we move into our mermaid, this is really great for the health of our hips. We're going to swivel into pigeon. So taking the right foot out in front of us. Let me move this. This is going to be my bolster to let rest on. So finding the position of the front leg, remembering that it's not all about having the shin parallel to the front of the mat. The angle of the leg, especially the shin, is going to be dependent on the external rotation available. So you might want to bring the foot underneath the groin, or indeed bring some padding underneath that region to support your pigeon. If you gaze over at the back of the leg, you lift up through the foot and drop through the front of the foot to find your pigeon. We're going to rest into this space, rocking to and fro from side to side, easing into the hips here. Releasing around the jaw. And as we release around the tension around the jaw, we move into the yama of asteya, non-stealing. Now, the non-stealing here within our body is more about tension or about aspiration, which causes the tension. So if we can be contented within our own body, which is an experienced, a felt sense of things, within a softer practice rather than a practice that encourages a striving or a grasping, we can move into those ethics such as asteya, ahimsa, and brahmacharya. Brahmacharya meaning continence or abstinence, or directing one's own energy for the greater good. So you may not need to feel striving, moving towards a specific ideal within this pigeon. There may be a sense of clenching around the hip. What can you do to make this more nourishing, to make this about release? We're going to roll out from the side here as we come out of pigeon. So propping ourselves up onto our hands, rolling, releasing that padding. So we come into mermaid. And then as we swivel the hips, we're going to swivel them over to the other side. Roll onto the left side now. So we swivel from a spiraling movement as opposed to a linear movement, and we use the padding and the support to come under the pelvis if necessary, looking down at the back heels to straighten out the leg, flattening the foot. If pigeon isn't accessible or not a happy place to be today, come into mermaid. Find yourself in a little forward fold. Breathing and cultivating space. And indeed, if you found that you've lost that box breath, we'll come into that in the next few asana. Rocking from side to side can be really helpful within pigeon when we begin to clench, and the clenching within the hips moves up into the jaw. We remind the body to release rather than to move into battle with itself. That can help soften and soothe and changes the sort of sense of spaciousness that is experienced within the mind and body here. So we're going to pop ourselves up onto our hands, roll out to the side, remove any padding, and bring yourself now into a position on the sit bones with the feet in front of you. So we're going to come into a little hug, self-hug. Okay, so nothing complicated about this. But with our sense of box breath, We're going to begin to move into an upward facing tabletop and an upward facing plank. So here we have flexion within the lumbar. We're going to bring the hands behind the buttocks. Inhaling. On the pause of the inhalation, we're going to lift up the pelvis up towards the ceiling, finding the pause. Exhale. And pause in your little hug hold. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, placing the hands, 2, 3, 4. Pause and lift, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Let's do one round of the breath here. Inhaling, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Now this time we're straightening out the legs to come into Dandasana. 2, 3, 4. We're going to exhale, lift. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. And hold in a little Paschimottanasana. Okay, so finding your own flow here, bring the hands behind the buttocks. The next stage, you point the toes and you lift. Now we can hold this for one round of box breath, or you can keep on moving, depending on your needs. Coming into your counter pose, which is your Paschimottanasana. Giving yourself an opportunity to bring the hands back, so none of this movement is fast or rushed. Coming up into your upward facing plank, gazing down towards the floor and drawing the hips back down towards the mat, coming into your Paschimottanasana. One more of those, and if you want to hold this for longer, feel free to do so. Finding the pause, inhaling or exhaling here, wherever you are with your box breath. Breathing and releasing and coming into that counter pose, which is really crucial for anything that moves into extension around the lumbar. Now we're going to bring ourselves back onto our sit bones, coming into Navasana. So the shins are parallel to the floor. On the exhalation, we bend the knees in towards the chest. We find a pause. As we inhale, we can straighten the knees and find a pause. Exhale. Finding that pause, that kumbhaka, that retention. Inhale. Oops. Inhale. And find a pause. Now, by all means, this can be a very subtle movement, especially if you're working mainly with the legs or the knees bent. Inhaling. Pausing. Lifting up through the spine. Exhale. Now we're going to roll down. So you can roll through the spine with a sense of control and end up with the knees bent here. So I'm just going to bring myself into the middle of the mat. So we come into a semi-supine. Now the box breath is going to help us within our peeling of the spine into our Dvipadipitha. So firstly, let's do one round of this, rolling the pelvis off the ground, feeling into the lumbar. Now many of us have a preference about where we breathe in this. So we're going to find the pause as we thrust the pelvis off the ground, and then inhale or exhale back down. So the next time we come into this, I would recommend inhaling. We're going to bring the arms up overhead, Inhaling, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, drape, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhaling, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale and drape down through each vertebra. Pausing, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to bring the knees in towards the chest to ensure again a sort of roundedness around the spine, which is really important. And we're going to rock and roll into an all fours position. So taking the legs overhead, allow for that flexion to come in and roll forwards. Now, for those of you who want to explore thrusting the legs behind you, you can bring the hands forwards and come straight back into plank. Otherwise, we're ending up in our all fours position. Okay, so depending on how you feel, you can give that a go. We're coming into tabletop, but we're going to explore plank and hold that for some box breaths. So finding your tabletop and extending through your legs. Now you can move the knees in towards a tabletop if that's preferable for your energy in your body. Otherwise, you can lift both knees up. We're going to think about this box breathing. So inhaling, pausing with your kumbhaka, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. By all means, you can inhale, bring a knee down, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. So you're either holding 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And pause, 2, 3, 4. So option to come into your plank for one more round. 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to come into a rotation. So thread the needle, bring the left hand in towards the center. Inhale, the arm comes up and over, spiraling here as we thread our arm through, releasing the efforts of the box breath here. Now we're going to hold this rotation, this thread the needle, gazing down along the arm, feeling into the back of the shoulders, the rhomboids, the trapezius, gazing here. And then releasing the hands, so we bring the wingspan up towards the ceiling. We're going to bring the right hand back, left hand inhaled up towards the ceiling. And release the arm through, finding that rotation within the shoulders. Breathing here. And then drawing that arm out to the side and bring the hand back in. So find your tabletop now. We're going to come into bird dog, extending through the right and the left. We're going to open on a count of 4, inhaling from middle finger to base of the big toe, pausing at the top of the inhalation. And exhaling to bring the limbs back down. Find the pause, equalize the weight through the limbs. Inhaling, extending through the limbs, middle finger, thumb, or big toe rather. Finding that pause. Exhale, drawing the hands back down. Inhale, this time we're coming into our frog-like lizard. Inhaling. Finding that pause, we're going to exhale the limbs to the outer, the lateral here. Finding a pause. Inhale. Pausing and exhaling to bring the limbs back down. Coming to the other side. Left hand, right leg. Inhaling. Finding that pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale, the limbs move to the outer external rotation of the hip. Inhale, reach, finding your kumbhaka and drawing the limbs back in, sinking the hips back, coming into child's pose, creeping the hands forwards. And then like crabs, we're going to creep the hands over to the left side. So the right hand comes on top of the left hand. Breathing into the side seam of the body, opening up through the lateral line here. Creeping the hands back through the center and coming over to the left or the right side with left hand stacked on top of the right. And then creeping the hands back through into the midline. See if you can bring your elbows down into your little right reading child's pose. Can you bring your hands up towards your ears? Or is it more comfortable to come into your Bhramari breath in a kneeling position, in hero's pose? So you can be here or you can be here. With our Bhramari breath, we've practiced this regularly now. We're going to close through the earlobes with the thumbs, and I'm just going to come here into a kneeling position so you can see me. We're going to do 3 rounds of this, exhaling to the end of that vibration. So bringing the hands to the earlobes. When you're finished, bring the palms up towards the ceiling. Inhaling, softening around belly. Exhaling, closing the earlobes and humming on the exhalation. Inhaling. Inhaling. Releasing the hands and observing how the pranayama feels. I'm going to get hold of the strap and utilize the strap in our Gomukhasana arms. So thinking about arms extending like wings, we're going to semaphore the right hand with the strap over the head and then bring the left hand over. It can be helpful to experience the movement before kind of moving straight in, and without any sense of wrenching, grasping, or stealing into this shape. So there's no need for the hand to move directly up to the other hand. The strap is here in order to support us. Feeling into this shape, and I will turn around just to show you. So it may be the case that you can bring the hands together, but is that beneficial, or does that create a sense of striving in us? In which case, can we use the strap to create a sense of spaciousness? And we're going to gaze over to the left shoulder, exploring the sternomastoid, and the right shoulder. How does it feel to bow forwards with the strap in this position? And release upwardly. And then with a sense of understanding how much space there is, we're going to ease out and bring the strap now into the left side. So semaphoring left arm over the top, imagining that we're coming into Gomukhasana, but we're not quite. We're going to semaphore right arm over head, and then taking the left arm up and over, feeling into the space available in the shape on the other side. How does this feel? Finding the strap, gazing over the right shoulder. Is there any gristliness present? And gazing over to the left. And again, exploring how we feel as we come into a forward fold. And lifting up and out. Releasing the shoulder and drawing the arms out to the side. The strap can just come alongside. So bearing in mind the shoulders here, is it feasible for you to clasp the hands behind the buttocks? Does that feel okay in your body? Now, it might be the case that you're loosely clasping the fingers together, or you can bring the palms together to the heel of the hand. We're going to drop the forehead. Now, if the forehead does not want to drop towards the floor, you can widen the knees, but you can also raise the floor up towards the forehead with a block. And you can use lots of blocks. We're aiming to bring the forehead down towards the ground. If this is too strong on shoulders, you'll know about it as you move forwards. You may want to bring the hands into tripod and focus on the sense of rolling. So as we draw the arms away from buttocks, we're going to bring the forehead down and roll up into the crown of the head, allowing for the arms to drape away. If your hair is in a ponytail or a clasp, that may be in the way. Certainly is the case for my body. So we're rolling from forehead to crown of the head, and then rolling back to the forehead, bringing clasp back in. Inhaling, finding a pause as we draw down through the crown of the head. And exhale to roll back onto the forehead. One more time. Coming back to a sense of the box breath without forcing anything, acknowledging the pauses at the top and the bottom of the inhalation and the exhalation. Feeling that pressure in through the forehead and the crown of the head. Now we're going to take the hands out to the outside of the mat and tuck the toes under to transition now into our standing pose. So you're lifting the buttocks up towards the ceiling, finding a dog and gazing over left or under left armpit and right armpit, dropping the head so there's less kind of density around the neck region. We're going to creep the feet up towards the hands and come into a bent knee forward fold, Uttanasana. Relaxing through the arms, allowing for the torso to hang freely and really allowing for flexion to come out through the spine. We're going to peel and ragdoll ourselves up into a standing pose. And the last thing to come up will be the head as we rest the hands down alongside. Coming into a standing pose. This is where I need to adjust. So find your feet, find the ground. Acknowledge that you're not simply standing as you normally would, which might feel a bit kind of like this, but coming into a position where the feet are engaged, the toes can lift so we can fully find our feet by peeling the toes down on an individual basis. And I'm going to come so you can see my profile. Now, as we ground down through the right leg, we're going to lift up through the left, bending at the knee, and step back into Virabhadrasana 1. And the front of the hips are like headlamps here. You can either lift up the heel or swivel it into a 45-degree angle. If you're feeling off balance, you'll want to widen that stance by wiggling the foot to the outside edge. When we come into our breathing, we're going to come into a flow. So inhaling, lifting arms up towards the ceiling. Find the ground, especially the back line of the body, the heel meets the floor. Exhale, forward fold, gazing at the floor. Pausing in this flat back parallel. Inhale, reach in front of you and find that pause before you exhale the hands down alongside the body. Pausing to lift. Inhale, reaching up towards the ceiling. Ground down through the tailbone, so there's nothing happening in the lumbar. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Gazing at the floor. Pause. Inhale. Pause. Exhale, drawing that energy down through the body. Finding that pause to lift. Inhale, reaching the hands up overhead. Pausing to find your still point energetically. Exhaling. Parallel to the ground. Pause. Inhale to reach, finding length along the spine, the head and the hands. Exhale, gathering the energy down alongside the body. And we're going to step forwards. So bring that foot forwards now. We're going to come to the side. Bring the knee up towards the chest. Step that leg back. Virabhadrasana 1 on the other side. Heel off the ground or swiveled about 45 degrees. We're looking for the hip points to be facing forwards. Make any adjustments that you need to. Bent front knee, straighten back leg. Inhale. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pausing. 2, 3, 4. Inhale to reach. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Lifting up chest. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Hinge. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Lifting and exhale. So coming into a flow one more time. Inhaling, pausing and exhaling with the movement. And it doesn't matter which movement comes with which breath, but it's the sense of the box breath, sense of slowing it down, the sense of retention, and potentially the sense of that moves into within your nervous system and your mind, coming back into that Virabhadrasana 1 position. And we're going to step forwards now to the front of the mat. So we're going to sink tailbone down towards the floor to come into chair pose, hands at heart center. Coming into chair, how much can we take this without impinging on our lumbar? The quads are working strong here. Lovely straight spine, and make adjustments to make this more comfortable. So if I'm facing you, this will be helpful. So we come into our little squat, breathing here. Now we're going to release up into Tadasana. The next time we come into Utkatasana, we bring the feet together. So we have a 1 foot situation, sinking down through the legs. As we exhale all the way to the end of the exhalation, we're going to rotate. So the belly will have drawn in, the diaphragm will lift up, so therefore there's more rotation available. Now it may be the case that the elbow can hook to the outside edge of the thigh, or maybe you're moving towards that. Breathing along the length of the spine here, and drawing yourself back in towards the midline. We're going to exhale, emptying out the lungs. Rotate, find a pivot, find a point that we're working with, gazing to the left side, and draw yourself back in towards the midline. Now you can try that one more time. We're exhaling and rotating. And notice as the knees may want to slide, coming back through the midline, exhaling and rotating. It's a strong rotation. Coming back through the midline and extending back up into Tadasana. Now find your brick or your block if you have them, and we're going to pop them in front of us. So if you've got a few bricks and blocks, by all means, do use them. We're coming into Brasarita Padottanasana. A wide leg forward fold. So finding the outside edge of the feet here. I do find in class practicing this that some people don't bring themselves into a very wide leg position. I'd recommend coming into a wider position than you think you might need to come into. So feeling into the outside edge of the feet here, hands come to the hip points, drawing tailbone down towards the mat to change the position of the pelvis, and to secure the stability within the spine, we're going to hinge forwards. Gazing at the brick, we're going to get hold of the bricks. Inhaling to lengthen through the vertebra of the spine and the crown of the head. We're going to exhale, grounding down through right hand. Exhale into rotation, gaze follows. Inhale, bring the left hand down towards the brick. And exhale, arm comes over. And you might know where I'm headed with this. If you want to, you can bring the right hand, rather than to the brick, to the ankle, exhaling to gaze over. By all means, use the brick, listening to your body and what's available to you. This rotation comes about through the thoracic, not so much lumbar. Bring yourself back towards the brick, finding that integrity, that lovely long spine from tailbone to the crown of the head, and then bring your hands to your hip points, easing up and out into an upright position. Now to make our way down to the floor, we're going to bring the heels in towards one another, bending through the knee and exploring a pistol squat. So don't dump into this, but just feel into what takes place as you draw yourself down. You can take the heel off the ground, of course. No need to feel like the feet are in concrete. They're absolutely not. And then as we creep ourselves over to the right leg, feeling into the straightened leg on the other side. And then as we come down, we're going to bring ourselves down onto our sit bones and come into a Baddha Konasana, so a little butterfly pose. Bring the feet together and just draw yourself into a little forward fold. So as we do this, the pelvis comes into an anterior tilt. If it's in a posterior tilt like this, you'll feel some flexion within the lumbar. Can you draw the pelvis forwards as you drop yourself over the feet? Baddha Konasana. So we're going to come into Nadi Shodhana, but with the box breath. So when we explore alternate nostril breathing, we often naturally come into the pauses, the kumbhaka, the retentions at the top and the bottom of the inhalation and the exhalation. So you've got Antar Kumbhaka or Bihar Kumbhaka. Now, we're going to be doing that with the digits. And if you come into a slower pace than what I'm counting for, let that happen. But we'll be taking the attention to the third eye, so Anjana Chakra. Just feeling into this little forward fold before we come into consideration of which seated position that we're going to come into. So inhaling to draw yourself back into an upright position. You'll notice an inhalation can be very energetically bringing you to the present, whereas an exhalation can draw us down into a sense of calm, release. The inhalation can help us come to. So bringing your padding behind the sit bones. If you don't want to come into cross-legged, you can come into here or into your kneeling position. So find a comfortable position to work with. Going to bend through the right side of the elbow, and you can hold the elbow if you know that you tire in this position. Otherwise, you can just bring the palm to face up towards the ceiling. Now, how are our nostrils? Are they open? If you inhale through the left nostril, connected to the moon, is that clear? And then if you close the left nostril, breathing through the right, said to be connected with the sun, how does that feel? Is that clear? And to begin, we're going to close through the thumb, acknowledging that we don't need to press very strongly indeed, just gently nudge into that corner. Inhaling through left nostril. Crossing, closing the fingers, and exhale through the right nostril. Where we find a pause, and then we follow with an inhalation. Taking that energy up to the forehead, the third eye center, we close, we open, and we exhale through the left side. Now this is where our box breath is going to come in. At the end of the exhalation, there's a kumbhaka. 2, 3, 4. We follow with an inhalation. 2, 3, 4. Attention at the forehead. Swap the fingers. 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. Crossing over the fingers. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Stopping the digits. 2, 3, 4. Find that pause. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Attention at the third eye center, like the peak of a triangle. 2, 3, 4. And exhale through the opposing nostril. 2, 3, 4. Now I'd ask you to do 10 rounds of this in your own breath. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to stop counting. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. One more. Finishing on the left side, the side that's connected with the moon. When you are finishing, releasing the hands, breathing through both nostrils, releasing through the shoulders, and exhaling through both nostrils, observing what has been cultivated through your alternate nostril breathing or Nadishadana. It is said to draw together the left and the right hemispheres of the brain by utilizing the nostrils. Is there a sense of equality, equanimity, of Sushumna, as it is known, coming about through that pranayama? Ultimately, just listen to your own body. Now we're going to make our way down into an inversion. We're going to use waterfall. If you want to come into another inversion, of course, feel free to do so. waterfall is the same shape as Vipariti Karini. I'm utilising a blanket today because my bolster's not in the room. So just to acknowledge that we don't always need a bolster to come into these shapes. Now, if you do have your padding, it could be a cushion, or it could be a meditation cushion. You pop that behind the buttocks and simply lift up through the legs, creating a little bit of a tilt of the pelvis, coming into your waterfall, releasing into that space. And by all means, if you're at home, you could utilize a wall or the sofa, bending the knees. It's still an inversion. No reason why we should have the knees straight. It's still an inversion. It still encourages venous return, gives the heart a break. It's good for lymphatic drainage and circulation and varicose veins. So it's a great thing to do, just feeling into how this is within your body. And I always try not to dictate how these things should feel, but encourage you to be empowered about how these things do make you feel. Because one thing that feels good one day may not feel so good the next day. So it's important to acknowledge that. I'm just going to bring myself out of the inversion. We're only going to spend a minute or so here in your waterfall. And inversions are a really good example of where we can really move into the yama or the ethic of brahmacharya, of continence or abstinence. Not in terms of the maybe stronger meanings of what brahmacharya is, but in terms of the meaning where we are directing our own energy. So in order to direct our energy in a more efficient way, with intention, we need to be able to restore ourselves firstly. And there are some really interesting diagrams in some of the original sort of yoga, hatha yoga books about the body, the healthy yogic body in health retains the pranic energy, the vital energy within. So we're building that vital energy, whether it's through our digestive fire or in a restorative position or with the breath. In a not so well body, so an ill body, a body with the body that's out of balance, shall we say, the prana leaks from the circumference of the body. It's lost. And that can be experienced in times of when we're not feeling 100%, in overwhelm, in stress, where there's nothing being retained within ourselves. That's a really good example of the brahmacharya that we're looking for within our yoga practice. Now we're going to take this into Shavasana. So ease the legs down, coming into a Shavasana that feels nourishing to you. We're going to drop down here just for a moment. So you might like to bring some padding behind the neck to come into the symmetrical, allowing for the limbs to move out from the midline. And by all means, if your legs, when straightened, create tension within the lumbar, just bring the knees to a bend and bring that bolster behind the knees. Releasing any effort over the breath. And I'm going to come again up to an upright position, giving ourselves the opportunity to consolidate the practice. Shavasana is really key. If you ever come into a yoga practice and move into various asana and pranayama and don't give yourself the opportunity to consolidate, makes all the difference. You can end up feeling off balance and the energy can be slightly all over the place. So this is the moment to consolidate practice. So to recap, this half term has been about ahimsa, non-harm, satya, truth, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, right use of energy, aparigraha, non-grasping or non-possessiveness. Non-possessiveness about this practice. This is a practice for everyone. Yoga itself is a completely inclusive practice. You can breathe, you can practice yoga. So I know many of you practice yoga on a daily basis or regular basis. If you can take one thing from this practice to utilize in your day-to-day, what would it be? Would it be simply in a seated position on the floor with the 3-part breath of the hands? Would it be utilizing the box breath, inhaling, pausing and exhaling and pausing for an equal amount of time? Or would it be something else from the practice? What can you use within your daily lives? We're going to close the practice now. If you want to stay in Shavasana, feel free to do so. At the end of the following sound, I know it's perceived very differently through Zoom than it is in person. I invite you to roll over onto either side in a fetal position. And grounding down through hands. Again, coming into an easy seated position. Finding your seat. Feeling the weight moving down through the sit bones. Let's close the practice. Inhaling the arms up and overhead, bringing the gaze to follow, reaching up towards the ceiling of the sky, and exhaling the hands and that energy down in towards the heart space, bowing in acknowledgement of one another in the space in between. Really take that bow deep. Namaste.